Hi guys, you're welcome back to my channel. This is Luchi's Design. If you are new here, you're welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for stopping by. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to make this stylish A-line flare gown from the start to the finishing. Please make sure you watch till the end. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel.
So this is the Ankara print I'll be using for this tutorial. It's 3 years here. I also have this beautiful fabric that I'll be using for the yoke design. It has a soft texture. You can use cordless or baby lace. For me, I make use of what I have here. I can mark directly on the fabric because the fabric have holes and it have a very soft texture. Marking on the paper will also help me to manage my fabric very well. As you can see, I left some inches on the upper part because I want to add all my necessary sewing allowance on this pattern. For the front part, I'll be using my chest line depth for the length of the yoke. To get my chest line, I normally divide my bust by 6 and add extra 1.5 inches. This calculation works for different body sizes. For me, I have 8.5 inches, so I will add half inch for joining allowance. I measure from my shoulder to 8.5 inches. I added half inch for joining. I will rule the line out. After that, I will be inserting half of my shoulder width. If I divide my shoulder by 2, I have 8 inches. So I will rule it down to the chest line as you see me doing. After that, I'll be marking my neck width. My neck width is 5 inches, but because of the Ankara design, I'll be marking 6 inches for the neck width. Please note that I will be replacing the 1 inch I took off with the Ankara fabric. For the neck depth, I use 9 inches. That's where the yoke will stop. So I will connect it with a V neckline. Connect it the way you see me doing. After that, I will come down by 1 inch from my shoulder slant and I will connect it to my neckline. After that, I'll place quarter of my round bust on my chest line. I divided my bust by 4, add half inch for ease and 1 inch for sewing allowance. And I will divide my chest line by 2 this way. To determine the midpoint, I will come in by 0.75 and I will connect it the way you see me doing, just to curve my armhole. That's all. So I will be adding my sewing allowance front so that if I cut it out, I place it on my fabric and cut exactly what I have on my pattern. So I will just cut it off now. After that, I'll be cutting out my back part. Please note that when you are transferring to your fabric, you will put your fabric on fold. So I've marked my starting point for the back part. So I will measure down 16.5 inches for the back length. That's what I use for the back length. So I will come down by 8.5 for my chest depth and I will roll the line out. For the back neck width, please use 5 inches. I will also place half of my shoulder width. I have 8 inches. So I'll connect it to my chest line. After that, I will mark my neck depth of 13 inches. I use 13 inches for my neck depth. I'll mark it and I will connect it like a V shape. Can you see what I have? So I will come down by half inch for the shoulder slope. I'll connect it. I'll place quarter of my bust measurement on my chest line. I added 1.5 inches for the necessary sewing allowance. On the waist, I divided my waist by 4, add 1.5 inches for sewing allowance and I connected it to the chest line. I'll divide my chest depth by 2, come in by half inch for the back armhole. I'll connect it the way you see me doing. I'll also add my sewing allowance on the back part. I will add it round the way you see me doing. After that, I will also be adding half inch on this side because I'll be slashing it open. So I'll need half inch to join it together. I'll add half inch. Can you see? I'll trim it out now. This is what I have for the back part. This half inch I added here is because I will slash it. I'll use it to join it together. When we are sewing it, you understand better. So for the down parts now, I will open up my fabric. This is the width, that is 45 inches by width. I will start with the front part. So I will fold my fabric diagonally in form of a triangle. Depending on how full you want the flare to be, you can increase your folding or you reduce the fold. For me, I want to achieve a full flare. Can you see what I have here? So I'll make sure that what I have here is up to quarter of my round bust plus 1.5 inches sewing allowance. I'll confirm it. I will also confirm whether it's up to the length that I want. If it's not up to the length, I will reduce the fold. On this line is where I will be placing quarter of my round bust. Please confirm whether it's up to what you want. Please, it's very important. So to determine the full length of the gown, I'll be removing the 9 inches I cut out for the yoke design. So I place my tape on the starting point. I mark 39 inches for the gown length, added 1.5 inches for hemming allowance, and I mark it round to connect it. After that, I will keep my tape at the apex of the fabric just to determine whether the length of my gown is equal. I will keep it this way and I will go around the hem just to connect it. To determine my half length, that is my waistline, I will also keep my tape this way and I will measure 17 inches for my half length. I'll be placing quarter of my round bust on this line. If I divide my round bust by 4, I have 10.5. I add half inch for it, add 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I'll also place 10.5 inches on my half length. I will also add 1.5 inches for sewing allowance and I will curve it to connect it to my chest line. After that, I will slant it down to the hem. Please note that this gown doesn't have a zipper. That is the reason why I mark my round bust measurement on the waistline. I place my yoke for you to see what you have. Alright. After that, I will cut it out the way you see me doing. Can you see what I have here? This is how you're supposed to be looking when you are done. So I'll fold it this way to make sure that the length is equal. Can you see? Make sure that the both sides are equal. After that, I will proceed to the back part. I will also fold my back part the same way I folded the front. But I will increase the fold because the waist area have gathers. If you check the picture at the thumbnail, you see that it have a little gather. So I'll add extra 4 inches for the gathers. If you have enough fabric, you can do more than 4 inches. So you confirm what you have there. I have 10.5 plus extra 4 inches for the gathers. To determine the full length for the back, I'll be removing the 16 inches I cut out for the half length. I place 16 inches on the starting point and I mark my full length. I added my folding allowance. I will just go around with a dotted lines. After that, I will connect the lines. So on this line now, this first line is my half length. So I'll be curving it a little bit. The same way I curve the front part, I will curve it and slant it to the hemline. Can you see the curve? Just make a little curve there. Can you see the curve? In order to make the hem line equal, you check the both sides. Check the length whether it's equal. Like I have 24 inches this side. I'll also check this side whether it is 24 inches. If it's not 24 inches, you make it equal. I place my front part on the waistline and the length is equal. Can you see? So I will cut the back part off now. On the folded edge, I will come down by 1 inch to give it that flare curve so that when I join the upper part, it will balance very well. So I will measure 1 inch and I will slant it to the side. After that, I will cut everything out now. Can you see the curve at the waistline? That's how you're supposed to be looking when you're done. After that, I cut out the lining for the front and back. I reduced the lining by 7 inches, both for the front and back. What you need to do is to fold your lining into two, place it on your main fabric and cut exactly what you have there. I've done it for the front and back. I also cut the lining for the back part that I used to turn it. That's all for that. Alright, I've gone ahead to cut out my basic sleeve. I have a detailed tutorial on how to cut and fix a sleeve. I will leave the link on my description box so that you check it out. The length of the sleeve is 10 inches. I placed my pattern on the fabric and I cut exactly what I have on my pattern. The total length of the sleeve is 16 inches. So I cut out the one that I will use for gathers. I also cut out duffel satin to cover the holes. The length of this one is 6 inches plus 1 inch for sewing allowance, that's 7 inches. For the width, I multiply my round sleeve, that's where the sleeve will stop. I measure the round sleeve and multiply it by 2. This is the lining that I will use to turn it. I cut it out for the 2 sleeve. I've also cut out my yoke part. I folded my fabric into 2 and I placed my pattern on it and cut exactly what I have, both for the front and back. I also cut the design on the back part. I placed my net on the main fabric and I cut the width of 4 inches and the down part I have the width of 5 inches. To cut out the fabric that I will use to replace the 1 inch I cut out on the neck width, I folded my fabric in form of a bias, that's in form of a triangle, so that if I fix it, it will relax very well on my neck.
So I will measure what I have here.
For mine, I have 12 inches, and for the width, I have 1 inch. I'll add extra 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I will mark it straight and I will cut it out. So I've ironed it. I folded it into 2 and iron. I also folded in half inch that I will use to top stitch on it. If you measure it, you have 1 inch. To sew it, I'll place it this way and I will use half inch to sew it. I'll do it and come back and show you. I've done it. Can you see? So I'll push the seam inside this way. Can you see? And I will top stitch on it. I'll go to my sewing machine now and sew it with a tiny stitch straight like this. I've sewn it already. You give it a good ironing. I will now place it on the middle of my main fabric, that's for the front. You can fold your fabric into 2 to determine the middle of the fabric. I'll also place this one on top of the other one like this. I'll use half inch to sew it. I'll sew it and come back and show you how it will look like. Can you see what I have here? I've sewn it. Can you see my armhole? Everything is equal. To sew the back, I will first of all unpin it. After unpinning it, I will stitch this one down. I will fold this side with half inch and top stitch on it to secure it. I'll stitch this side down. I've done it for the 2 side back. Can you see? So the next thing now is to join the fabric separately, and I will also join the lining separately with half inch. I'll do it and come back and show you the next thing to do. This is what I have when I was done sewing it. I'll open the seam and iron it very well. Alright. For the lower part, I will go to my sewing machine and do a little gathers that will fit in on the upper part. I will do it for the lining and for the fabric. I've gathered it. So I'll be joining lining to lining, fabric to fabric. Join it this way. Can you see? It's equal. I'll stitch it down. I'll also do the same thing on my lining. I'll do it and come back and show you the next thing to do. Can you see what I have here? I've joined the lining to lining, fabric to fabric. After that, I will use the lining to turn the back neckline. I will match it together. I'll use half inch to sew it this way. After sewing it, I will also do the same thing on the front part. So I'll flip the yoke backward, and I will lay my lining on it. I'll sew it with half inch, but I will not start my sewing from the beginning. I will explain that later. So can you see the back part? I've sewn it already. I will give it a good notch so that the V neckline can relax very well. After notching it, I will flip it to the right side and give it a good ironing on the neckline so that it can relax very well. This is my front part. I've also sewn it. When I was turning the front yoke with the lining, I didn't sew the 1 inch for sewing allowance. I left it because I'll be sewing lining to lining, fabric to fabric. That's the reason for that. So the next thing now is to join the lining to lining, fabric to fabric. I'll first of all join my fabric together. I rearrange the front and back shoulder so that I can see what I'm doing very well. Match the front and back chest line together. Can you see the hem is equal? So I will use my chalk now to mark the 1 inch sewing allowance straight down. So I'll mark it. Make sure you curve the waistline so that it can get your shape. I'll mark it straight down. I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll sew it and come back and show you. Can you see I've sewn it for the two sides? To sew the lining now, I'll first of all bring out my shoulder the way you see me doing. Can you see my shoulder for the main fabric? So I will now join my lining this way. If you find my video helpful, please kindly give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I will match the chest line together. Can you see that the lining is also equal? I will sew it. Please make sure when you are sewing the lining, use half inch or 0.75 to close it. Don't use what you use to close the main fabric to close the lining. This dress does not have a zipper, so it's meant to be free around the waist area. I'll turn it inside out now for you to see. Can you see what I have? So I'll be joining the shoulder for the front and back. So I will place it this way. Open up the back shoulder this way and insert your front shoulder. Sew it. After sewing it, this is what you will have. I'll turn it to the right side now for you to see. Can you see it looking very neat? So the next thing I will do now is to work on the sleeve part. Can you see what I have here? So the next thing now is to fit my sleeve. I've stitched it down round. If you are sewing it, use your clip or pin to hold it before you sew. I've done that for the both sleeve. So the next thing I will do now is to go to my sewing machine and do a little pleat to fit in the round sleeve. I'll do it and come back and show you. Can you see I've sewn it already and I've attached it to the basic sleeve. I will now use my lining to close the sewing allowance. I will place it like this and pleat it. Can you see I've done it? I will now arrange it and stitch it down before I gather my round sleeve. The round sleeve is 12 inches. So I will use this stripe of fabric now to fold it. The width is 1.5 inches. I'll place it this way. I'll stitch it with half inch. After sewing it, I will turn it and sew it again. I'll sew it and show you what it looks like. Can you see what I have? I've closed it. I will now shape it. I have a tutorial on how to fix a sleeve. Please do check it out.
Go to my sewing machine now and fix the sleeve. Do that off camera.